Fertilizer today is a science. It's a very complicated business. And you have to look after your soil, most importantly. You have to look after the crop. I have a famous customer who keeps on reminding me that the boss on his farm is not him, it's actually the crop. Very important to take note of what's going on your farm, what does the crops need, what does the soil need. And at the end of the day, fertilization is a science. And we have to become more efficient. Even farms, just as factories, have to be run efficiently. And that means you have to do more with less. And that's where Omnia comes in. We are much more than just a fertilizer provider. We are actually a provider of knowledge.
There is a science, as you said, in growing. How much education do you have to put into the farming community for that to become an applied science as opposed to a talked about one?
Yeah, it's enormous. And I think it's one of the shortcomings in our country is that there's not enough research happening and practical research, applied research. And that's where Omnia, we have our Feet on the Farm campaign, where our whole philosophy is to get on farms, to spend time with farmers. It's basically teaching them on the job year after year, doing trials and proving that our science works. So it's a continuous process. I don't think it is anything that's got a beginning and an end. Society is still learning continuously, and as things develop and new cultivars are being developed and so forth. So we are always there. We've got quite a few people in research. We have a lot of agronomists who spend time on farms, and we try to develop new products. And we also try to prove that it works by doing trials on farm. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't give the results, then we haven't achieved anything.
I want to come back to that R&D, the research and development, in a minute. But before we do, I'd like to talk to you. You made a very good statement just now when you said that society is still learning and society is changing. Well, as we know in South Africa, we're in a very unique position. In the last 20 years, society has changed. You have an enormous black aspirant farmer coming through. They have not had the capability of being able to tap in to this R&D and to this products of yours. How do you move into that market, to the aspirant black farmer?
A very interesting question. Omnia have been trying to get involved in this market for a long time, and I think, like many companies in the beginning, we were thinking size. We needed to approach and reach a lot of black farmers, and how do you do that practically? And it's quite difficult. And eventually we've discovered that we need to identify a few farmers who have really got the potential that we can really develop and make sure that they become commercial farmers. And we've been doing that over the past few years. We've been quite successful. But it involves a lot more than just fertilizer. It involves training people, mentoring them, teaching them an income statement and a balance sheet, assisting them with funding, assisting them with finding markets, managing risks, like insurance packages, for instance. And we are now getting involved, hopefully in the next year, in even mechanization, as our farmers are busy developing and growing. And we've been very successful. We've got some very, very good stories to tell. We are not chasing numbers. We've discovered that it works to make sure that we identify the correct people and that we take them through. And it's an entire package. We appoint more than 100 agronomists. And even on this specific project with our black farmers, we have quite a few people on the farm, permanently in the area, working together. We create forums for farmers to speak together and to learn together. But we're also on his own farm, spend time with him, look at what his problems are and how we can assist. And over time, you get educated in that way. There's only so much that one individual can learn of theoretical knowledge on one day. It's a continuous learning process. Our projects is basically in specific locations, and then we have people who look after them full time, but they are supported by a whole framework of support teams, such as our SAS team, Strategic Economical Services. Our finance people get involved with the financing side at head office. So we basically have a toolbox of goodies that we can offer farmers. And this individual who looks after the specific amount of farmers in that area will make sure that we tap into that resource as and when we need it.
We have successful commercial farmers in this country, highly successful, world-acclaimed farmers. There's always been a talk, as you well know, of land seizure and taking away from the farms. Worldwide, the most successful farms are getting bigger, not smaller.
For sure, yes.
So that creates a problem now that we have an up-and-coming population that wishes to become part of the farming community, but we can't take away from the existing farming community.
Yeah.
Now, you and I both know there's a lot of land not being used at the moment, but it's going to need a lot of help from people like yourself.
That's 100% true, yes. And I think it needs to be a partnership between big, large commercial farmers and small farming, the small farmer, the upcoming farmer. But at the end of the day, it has to be sustainable. And I think that's where government, but also industry, has got a lot of work to do to see how do we partnership together to make sure that these farms develop into successful farms. We've got a bit of a problem where commercial business and government, we have a disconnect. We battle to talk to each other. We need to market ourselves to government to show them that we actually have got the right intentions and that we want to have successes. And I think that's why what Omnia have done with our upcoming farmers is it's small. It's only a few hundred farmers that is benefiting by it, but it's successful. And we can already see that government is very interested, and we are busy. We're having good partnership with the Land Bank, for instance. So I think it's going to get a lot more momentum.
But Adriaan, here comes the problem. You know it, a few people in government know it, but the general government doesn't know it, nor does the general public. We need a publicity machine here, surely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need to publicize. There's a lot of farmers out there on their farms who do a lot of good things. Nobody knows about it. And we've had some discussions with some of our farmers to say, can't we help you to publicize these things? And they're very...
they won't spend money on publicity.
Well, it's not that they want to spend money also. It's
they don't.
They're almost a bit also reluctant to advertise too much what they are doing. Yeah. But for sure, it's a pity, because there's a lot of farmers who, I think the days of... where farmers was abusing the people, for instance, and so forth, is gone. People are really looking after their people. There's 1 or 2 bad apples in the barrel. There's always going to be.
Yeah, always.
But generally, our farmers are doing good work out there, and I think they're on the track, and they want to do what's necessary to build up the farming community.
How much more can you develop for something to go into the earth? I mean, they're natural substance, the earth. And many people will say, I don't want chemicals all over my food.
Exactly. That's exactly where it is. It's easy to fertilize. The question is, how do you fertilize efficiently and effectively? We all know that we are polluting the rivers and the soils. And a lot of people, if you don't look after your soils, where will you be in 10 years' time? So we're doing a lot of research at the moment, specifically around nutrient use efficiency. Because really what you want to do is put just enough to get the yields that you want, not to leave unnecessary nutrients in the soils. You want to look at the acidity of your soils and make sure that you manage that very, very well. So a lot of work on nutrient use efficiency. Then we're also doing a lot of work on water use efficiency. Because the next thing that is going to become the limiting factor is water. After the First or Second World War, the world was actually starving. And then people developed synthetic nitrogen. And that's how we managed to get the world population to where it is today. The next limiting factor will be water. And we have extremely good results. Correct fertilization can really improve water use efficiency. So we're doing a lot of research specifically on that area.
What about GMO crops?
GMO crops, I think if it wasn't for GMO crops, I don't know how we would feed the world. But yes, they also require different types of fertilizer. We need to look at how much fertilizer we give. Because the yields are much better and much larger yields. Rainfall's got an impact. We're busy developing models now how rainfall impacts on yield. And once you can calculate that, then you can start fertilizing correctly for that yield. So definitely a lot of work, and that's also with different types of maize. You need to apply different fertilizers all the time.
You have so many climatic different areas in South Africa, so obviously you can't have one central application for everything.
Yes.
How spread out is that backup service to the farming community throughout South Africa?
We have people throughout. Wherever we are in operation, we have people. And at the moment, we are saying that we need to increase our complement of people, because it's just becoming much, much more scientific. And we also find that it works. We find that the farmers appreciate it. And that's how we do good business. And so we're going to improve our footprint. We have been moving into some new areas where we didn't used to do a lot of business in the last year. For instance, we're jacking up the business in the Western Cape a little bit. We're doing business in the Northern Cape. And as we grow, we also make sure that we put the backup systems and the people in place.
And yet for crop growing, the Western Cape is probably your most prolific.
It's a tough market. There's a lot of competition there. A lot of Omnia. We've been selling specialty products in that market, but you need a base load also to make the business work. So we are now much more into normal fertilizer, and yeah, so far so good. Our main agronomist looking after our service department is Dr. Koos Borman, and he comes from the Western Cape originally. Very. He's got, I think, a soft spot in his heart for them, and I can see already that the efforts developing products and programs for that area is definitely accelerating at the moment, and the Northern Cape.
Final question for you now. How do we stand in world class, or how does Omnia stand compared to its overseas competitors, or likewise?
I think Omnia is one of the leading companies. I travel a lot, and I think throughout the world, Omnia is a very respected company. We have got very good relationships with many big other fertilizer companies. In some cases, we work together. We also got good relationships with a lot of the seed companies and with our farmers. And I think our business model is reasonably unique. We haven't mentioned the word yet, but we don't call ourselves Omnia Fertilizer. We actually speak about Omnia Nutriology, which is all about this science of growing and how do we make people more successful on their farms. And I think, for us it's not just fertilizer. Fertilizer is, I think, what makes it happen, but at the end of the day it's the knowledge. And I think our business model have proven over 61 years that it's working. And internationally we have a very good reputation, and for us our reputation is everything. From working with our suppliers, working with logistics suppliers, working with our customers, we make sure that we do things right and that we maintain our relationships, because when other things goes wrong, we can always rely on those relationships.